Simon, in trying to understand the nature of consciousness and mentality, the whole area of free will is a marvelous probe of this whole territory.
Sure.
And so dealing with all the complexity of determinism and libertarian free will and how do you make it one compatible or incompatible, where do you come out? I mean, how do you look at free will?
Well, I'm a compatibilist. I don't have any problem with free. I have a lot of problem with the will. I think the will is the hard thing to understand, or more precisely, agency is the hard thing to understand. And partly that's because the scientific picture of what we are, the sort of picture that neurophysiologists will give, the sort of picture that we imagine a completed science coming to, we'll just find things happening. And so it's easy to think that they'll just find processes going on. You know, neurons fire, circuits work, you know, messages are communicated around inside my head, but they don't find me doing things. And so it's easy to feel that agency has been missed out. So we want to know what agency is. And the approach I favor really says you start to get agency when you get control of the right kind. And control of the right kind includes, for human beings, control by cognitions, awarenesses, and being subject to reasons. So freedom arrives with responsiveness to reasons, reason responsiveness, it's sometimes called. I would say that you're free and in that sense responsible and potentially to blame if things are going wrong. If your behavior is your own behavior, you're not coerced, you're not threatened, and you're in principle responsive to reasons. So a voice could have stopped you from doing whatever it was, and perhaps your own voice could have stopped you, but you were negligent or reckless or careless and you didn't think. And you're responsible then as well. So I locate freedom in reason responsiveness, and I locate agency there as well.
As opposed to locating freedom as the possibility that you could have done otherwise.
I think when we see somebody as responsive to reasons and as acting as an agent, we will say, you could have done otherwise, you could have done better, you could have done differently.
But that has to be a fiction as a compatibilist.
Yes and no. It's true that given the way things turned out, at the moment of action, it may be true that you could not have done otherwise. You're determined, or at best, quantum indeterminate, but that doesn't help, as we all know. But of course, things could have been different. We don't let determinism stop us saying that in general. It could have been a better summer.
Yes.
It could have been a better summer for the Olympics, we say. Now, if somebody comes along and cranks the scientific handle and says, no, it couldn't, because, you know, events starting shortly after the Big Bang have, in a deterministic chain, issued in this summer as we have it, it doesn't stop me saying, yeah, but it could have been a better summer. I need to think about that possibility. I need to think in terms of that possibility.
But when you say it could have been a better summer, it is impossible for it to have been a better summer. It could have been in some... you're like saying, I hope I would have been happier if it were a better summer, but it's impossible to have been a better summer because that's just the product of everything that had come before.
Okay, well, what that shows is there's a perfectly good use then of things like it could have been, which have become decoupled from the determinist sense of necessity. In the determinist sense, it's necessary that the summer is as it is.
Yes.
But still, it could have been a better summer.
Yes.
Now, that means there's a use of could have been, which is decoupled from necessity of that kind.
So necessity is there, but it could have been is a wish, as opposed to a statement about a real alternative.
Well, in that sense, then, we might say that you could have done better would itself express a wish or a verdict of some sort.
Yes.
And that's fine. That's fine. That's consistent with my compatibilism.
Yes, it is. It's consistent with compatibilism. The question is it consistent with truth?
Well, of course, it may turn out to be more like a verdict than a description of, certainly not a description of the metaphysics of the case. That issues in necessities or randomness. But I don't think that our remark is intended as a description of metaphysics. It's intended as a verdict on your behavior.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine. We have to run society.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a very reasonable way to do it. We
right.
have no choice, and that's fine.
And we have to see each other as responsive to reasons.
Yes,
And
yes.
we offer reasons and accept them and blame people if they don't listen to the voice of others.
It would seem to be metaphysically, to step onto that
Yes.
shaky ledge for a second, that you have three possibilities. You have necessity, you have chance, neither one of which everybody agrees is not really
good,
free
right.
will, in a libertarian sense where you could have done otherwise. And then to get that, it would seem that you need some sort of something operating outside the physical law, because that's just by definition, because the physical law is deterministic. It's a closed system.
Well, this is, again...
That's why you're a compatibilist, because you don't believe anything's outside the physical world.
That's right, I don't.
So that makes you a compatibilist.
Yeah.
That's consistent. It's perfectly consistent.
Yes, I'm a card-carrying compatibilist.
Right, and that's wonderfully consistent. The question is that truth?
Well, it's true because we've got to give a reading of you could have done otherwise, right? According to which it's not bowled over, it's not skittled over by the metaphysical the fact of determinism. So you can preserve truth provided you can find a reading of you could have done otherwise, which will provide just that. That'll be the compatibilism. Of course, an incompatibilist, a hard determinist, as they're sometimes called, will say there's no such reading. You couldn't have done otherwise, and that's the end of it. But I don't say that. I'm a compatibilist. I think the correct reading might be hypothetical. Here there's a problem. It's conditional. You could have done otherwise if something or other, if things had been different, roughly.
Right.
And that tends not to cut it. The hard determinist or the libertarian says that's not good enough. I want instead to say that the proposition you